right. I want to bring up Karmelo Anthony.
My reaction on that before we get into any of the technical discussions is this Anthony was supposed to be captain of his football team, right? Okay, the captain of the football team being captain of that football team meant that most of the players that you were captain over are not going to be black. Next thing is if you're captain of the football team, that pretty much means you're a starter. You're going to be either offense or defense, so whichever side you're on, that means that every play you line up with 11 people on the other side who may range from a medium size, 190 some pounds, 11 of them, all the way up to 250 or 260, and they're going to try to beat the crap out of you, which is why you have on padded helmets, shoulder pads, chest pads, rib pads, hip pads, thigh pads, knee pads, and people get hurt because they beat the crap out of each other. You're violent every play. Every play, you knock somebody down if you're trying to block. You get knocked down if you're trying to block and somebody's trying to rush over to you to get to your runner or your passer. You're catching a ball and you're getting tackled, or you're trying to tackle somebody. Every play you get hit. So the theory behind what everybody is hearing that's supposed to engender sympathy is there were 290-pound apiece twins that were going to physically hit him, suffer blows, the same blows that he would suffer every single play in a football game, by the same sized individual that he would be facing at least 11 of every play in the football game. And he's supposed to be justified in stabbing one of them in the chest and taking that person's life. That is a punk play. The entirety of the rationale from anybody who supports and tries to justify that, whatever the circumstances legally, that's sissified, and that demonstrates the widespread emasculation of the male population in the United States today, that such a position could even be considered. From my perspective, if you got confronted that way, either run, fight, take your behind whipping, or you prevail, or you sit there and hold your own so somebody says, we don't deal with this guy like that again. That's how humankind has been working since day one. We have an effeminized population of males in America who thinks they're too damn pretty to get scars, scratches, scrapes, bruises, or cuts because of unarmed combat, and they think they can kill somebody just because they might take a behind whipping. That is a punk matter. That's not fighting like a man. That is fighting like a punk, and that is illustrative of something I saw growing up in what was once called South Central LA, but that was before I grew up. That was after I grew up, and that was the person that you had to worry about killing you, stabbing you, or shooting you was the scariest punk out there who was full of fear. And that's what we have. Now, legally, there may be something that a jury might do in terms of nullification or under the charges that are delivered to them during the course of this trial that might result in an acquittal. I can't tell you, because juries are fickle animals. And that is just the reality of what we're confronted with our system, since it's not AI, and I doubt AI could embrace what's necessary. But it is what it is, but just as a masculine consideration, it was a punk play with no justification at all. Now, that said, let's move on to the other things that might come up legally.
This week, Karmelo Anthony, who is now 18 years old, has been indicted on first-degree murder charge. Anthony is accused of fatally stabbing 17-year-old Austin McCaff in April during a track meet in Frisco, Texas. If convicted, Anthony faces 5 to 99 years in prison. His attorney said he is looking forward to his day in court and for the full story to be revealed. Now, a judge has not been assigned yet. They said a judge should be assigned this week along with a trial date. And some people are speculating, hey, this trial may not even start until next year in 2026. But I want to bring this up here because Karmelo Anthony, a spokesperson, a spokesman for the family of Karmelo Anthony, launched into, you might as well say, a racial tirade after the 18-year-old was indicted Tuesday on first degree. Dominique Alexander, he is the founder and president of Next Generation Action Network, took to X to announce the legal process will move forward towards trial. This case involves multiple minors and sensitive details that I cannot and will not speak about publicly. That is why, from the beginning, I have refused to let this be tried in a court of public opinion. He goes on to say, Alexander then spoke directly to those who says he have targeted the Anthony family. He says, to the racists, the bigots, and those filled with hate who've targeted Karmelo and his family, and even myself, you do not intimidate us. We are not backing down. This case is yet another example of what it means to be Black in America, where even our self-defense questions scrutinized and politicized. My involvement, like many others, came as a direct response to the overwhelming hate, threats, and outside influence that have surrounded this case since day one. He also said, he then asked Anthony supporters for prayers and support due process and to stand with us in the fight against white supremacy.
That's bullshit. The problem is it's a punk play, as I elaborated on before I even started. There is no justification where there is, at worst, a fist fight and a behind whipping that might come out of that for stabbing somebody to death. None at all. That is a punk play, an unmanly play. To try and equate backing up that sissified circumstance with somehow or another impugning Black manhood as being jeopardized and necessary to be defended is ridiculous. Now, that's what the problem is. It's got nothing to do with race. It's got to do with punk emasculation.
Well,
and growing up, like somebody said, remember just the other night we had that thing on with X Space. What did that gentleman say? Growing up means you got to knuckle up.
Yes. Now,
that's being a man, whether it is 15,000 BC in an ice age, or it's talking about right now 2025 in the United States of America.
So he's implementing white supremacy into
that is garbage. I am insulted, and I've been Black doing stuff for Black folk longer than this fool's daddy had a gleam in his eye because his daddy wasn't even born when I started, and other folk who were Black men started being Black men. We know what that is. That's a punk play, and we always had aberrations growing up in somebody's hood, ghetto, or whatever it was in a segregated circumstances where you couldn't leave the place because you weren't allowed. There was always some punk that would go stab somebody, shoot somebody because he was scared instead of taking the behind whipping and then figuring out how to fight better or coming back and taking somebody one-on-one.
Right. Now,
it's a disgrace. I'm not saying that he might not get away with it, because depending upon how a jury is selected, depending upon what a jury pool is about, you may encounter a phenomenon in American law known as, quote, jury nullification. If I can give you an explanation, I had a series of trials as a defense lawyer. It's been more than 40 years ago, and the crime involved was called unnatural sex acts. It carried a range of punishment between 3 and 15 years in a state penitentiary, which at that time was up to the jury to impose. You know what the act consisted of? For heterosexual couples to voluntarily engage in oral sex could get you 3 to 15 years in the state penitentiary. So when I tried my defendants who were charged with such crimes, what wound up happening is the jury would say, Jesus Christ, my wife and I do that all the time. You mean we could go to the penitentiary? And the judge would say, yes, sir, that is true. Well, at that point, self-interest tucked in amongst the 12 people in the jury box who were there to deliberate, and they said, we don't care what the devil the law says. We're not going to convict somebody for doing something we do all the time. Now, that's a classic example of jury nullification. That's no longer the law in the state of Tennessee, but it was at the time. It's called unnatural sex acts. So we got a lot of jury nullifications when the jurors heard what that consisted of. Now, that's what may happen here if you get the right kind of jury for this case as far as the defense is concerned. This is what happened with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman down in Florida. You got jury nullification because the prosecution was not inclined to go against the majority of the constituents that elected the elected district attorney who wanted to return to his plush job. He went through the motions, and the family of the victim was represented by an ignorant attorney who did not realize that stand your ground was in favor of his dead client rather than in favor of George Zimmerman. By the way, that person is now recognized as a preeminent civil rights lawyer. I'll say no more on that. I just thought it was a travesty, but I got consulted on the matter way back when, so it is what it is. Now, that's the kind of thing that can happen. I've had jury verdicts where I've looked at it and everybody in the place, multiple witnesses have testified as to the guilt of a particular defendant, and all of the rest of the witnesses have testified as to the innocence of a particular co-defendant in the same case. And the jury comes back with a verdict of guilty on what everybody has said is an innocent man and acquitted the person that everybody said did it. And it is ludicrous. The court has a question. Mr. Thompson, you're foreman of the jury. Is that correct, sir? Yes, sir. Will you please advise the court as to which one of these defendants the jury is identifying as John Doe and which one is being identified as Thomas X? Because the verdict didn't make any sense. I've had jurors come back on a closed case, and I've allowed the prosecution and the defense to question the jury, assuming the jury wanted to be questioned, and I've stood right there while it's going on. Mr. Foreperson, or Ms. Foreperson, didn't you find reasonable doubt? Oh, we found lots of reasonable doubt. There was a lot of reasonable doubt in this case, but we figured that you smart trial lawyers kept us from finding out what really happened, so we voted to uphold the police. He must have done it if they arrested him. That's absolutely contrary to the law, and I set the verdict aside. But, I mean, that kind of thing does happen. So, I mean, humans compose juries, and out of every 5 juries, 1, 2, 3 of them are pretty good. One of them acts like they have lost their mind, and the other one acts like they all took the short bus to school.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Meanwhile, the message, if you get summons to do jury duty, accept the call. Otherwise, don't say a damn thing about white supremacy, injustice, anything else, or justice is just us. You didn't do your job. And by the way, see, all it takes is one person to hang up a criminal jury. It's like part of what we've done is a man up thing, right? So when I'm talking about injustice for all, I'm also editorializing on that man up thing. And myself and other men that I know have spent lifetimes being men and answering the call and doing what we're supposed to do when we're supposed to do it. And we and myself, on behalf of them and on behalf of myself, are very offended when somebody starts trying to dig under and chop down manhood for a sissified position. I understand the legal possibility because right here, when you have a first degree murder situation, you have a case where the intent to take the life can quickly arise. So it becomes a matter of being an intentional and deliberate act. And personally, over the years, I was involved in at least 6 cases or trials where the death penalty was being sought against someone that was a juvenile who allegedly committed the offense. None of them got the death penalty. I saw to that. And I do have the dubious distinction of having gotten the youngest person in the entire world sitting on a death row, off a death row, after getting an execution stopped 23 minutes before it was supposed to occur. And the defendant at that time was 15 years, 2 weeks old. And this is for something he's supposed to have done when he was in the 7th grade. I got a unanimous decision by the Arkansas Supreme Court setting that verdict of guilty and the death penalty aside. So I do have that experience. Now, I say that in that context. Man up, brothers.
You hear me?
Oh, by the way, this is law. Justice or injustice for all. I understand why a lot of people are angry about circumstances attendant upon their ethnicity as it is here in the United States today. But there is this thing called justice, and you should not let that get in the way because justice is a thing. Justice is a circumstance. Justice is a state of mind. And if you're going to go out and get vengeance, that's on you. Just don't expect the system to back you up when you start trying to subvert it to cover up for something that's got other explanations besides justice.